Building what is effectively a new mainline railway into the heart of London was always going to be fraught with challenges, but one particular 300 metre long section may prove to be one of the most challenging to build on the entire HS2 route. Such is the complexity of the approach tunnels leading to Euston, I've dedicated an entire video just to this one relatively short section. In the previous video, I provided a broad overview of the progress at Euston Station and the approach. I'd encourage you to watch that if you haven't already, link in the description. The two tunnel boring machines, which are building the 7.2 km long Euston tunnel, will create two tunnels with a diameter of 7.5 metres, and should reach their destination by mid-2027. However, they will never actually reach Euston. Instead, the TBMs will come to a stop almost a kilometre from the station throat. And unlike most of the other TBMs used for HS2 tunnels, they won't have a visible breakthrough moment, and will instead just come to a stop. The final 300 metres will instead be constructed using mined tunnel techniques, which involves using relatively small plant machinery to painstakingly excavate the tunnel approximately 1 metre at a time. SCSJV, who have been tasked with constructing the approach, will have to excavate 3 separate tunnels and the huge cavern. The cavern will be used to split the up or southbound line tunnel into 2 further tunnels, which will head south to the surface, while a northbound or downline tunnel will emerge between the 2 upline tunnels. This, for all intents and purposes, will create an underground grade separated junction, although it won't technically be a junction, not in the sense that most people think. The purpose of this up and over arrangement is to remove as many conflicts as possible between northbound and southbound services, and to allow trains to reach all of the platforms. Just how many platforms will eventually be constructed is still unknown, but the key point is the approach allows trains to use all of the platforms, no matter how many are constructed, be it 6 or 10. Crucially, as a decision was already made about the design for the approach before Rishi Sunak curtailed the project, it has at least been future-proofed, meaning the new station could theoretically handle up to 18 trains per hour in each direction, should HS2 ever be extended north in future and more platforms built. The requirement to construct a cavern and 3 tunnels, which will have relatively sharp curves, be relatively close to the surface, and be constructed very close to one another, means it wouldn't be possible to use TBMs. The tunnels will therefore have to be excavated using a relatively small excavator, which can be fitted with different attachments, such as a bucket to remove material, or a rotary mining head to break apart material. During this process, spoil is usually transported away using a specialised dump truck. The material is then lifted to the surface, either using a long reach excavator, or, in the case of Euston approach tunnels, with a bucket attached to a gantry crane which will be installed above the shaft for the Euston Cavern headhouse. After each metre or so of the tunnel is excavated, a fibre reinforced concrete lining is sprayed to stabilise the roof and sides of the tunnel. After this is applied, the excavator moves back to the face of the tunnel to begin excavation again. So, as you can appreciate, this is quite a slow and laborious process, but it allows for a great deal of control, and the more tentative approach should in theory reduce any movement on the surface. Reducing ground movement is critical here, as tunnelling will take place underneath the West Coast Main Line. The railway, which will remain open during tunnelling, will be closely monitored, and any deviation of plus or minus 10mm will require further investigation. If this happens, a decision will likely have to be made about how best to proceed, and if it's safe for trains to continue to operate. I should point out though that the risk of significant movement remains very low, despite the challenging nature of the tunnelling and proximity to the surface. And when I say significant movement, I'm talking about millimetre tolerances. There has been some concern from local residents about the excavation of a huge cavern. However, SCS has devised a solution which should mean the risk of significant ground movement is very low, but properties will also be monitored. Before construction of the cavern commences, SCS will first have to construct the shaft for the cavern headhouse, which will be located next to Park Village East. It will take around a year to excavate the 30 metre deep shaft down to base level. Once the shaft has been excavated to base level, a horizontal side shaft will then be dug. From there, tunnellers will work north to construct the cavern. Once the cavern and downline tunnel have been completed, attention will turn to the two upline tunnels that will head south from the side shaft. Due to the size of the cavern, it wouldn't be possible to excavate the full face in one go, even 1 metre at a time. Instead, tunnellers will first have to construct so-called stacked drifts. This is where things get even more complicated, but essentially a drift is a small diameter pilot tunnel, constructed using the same mined tunnel techniques. Then, once each drift is excavated, it will be entirely filled with concrete. An adjoining drift will then be excavated next to and partially through the previously constructed drift. This will create a series of interlocking drifts that will act as the roof for the cavern. Within the footage of the rather excellent and incredibly useful models, the grey sections represent the drifts, while the blue sections represent the main tunnels and cavern. The best analogy I could think of for this is somewhat like seek and pile construction, which I explained in detail a while ago. At first, it seems a bit counterintuitive and perhaps wasteful excavating through a previously constructed drift, but the interlocking nature is key to their strength. Once a number of stacked drifts have been completed, tunnellers will then be able to construct the cavern. Again, this will involve partially excavating through the drifts from below to form the shape of the cavern roof. Some of the main running tunnels, which will have an internal diameter of 7.5 metres, will also require the prior excavation of pilot tunnels that will also be backfilled. One final complication, if this endeavour wasn't difficult enough, will be the TBMs, which haven't been forgotten about. All of the mechanical and ancillary parts within the TBMs will be dismantled and transported north to Old Oak Common via Euston Tunnel. The tunnelling shields will however remain in place, and they will in fact form part of the primary lining for the tunnel. Once the approach tunnels have reached the cutter heads, they will be cut apart and removed. A secondary concrete tunnel lining will then be poured into movable moulds placed within the tunnelling shields to create the final 7.5 metre internal diameter and shape of the tunnel. Although construction of the 7.2 km long Euston Tunnel will take just over a year, the construction of the short approach tunnels will take a number of years, although I'm not certain just how long. By the time the TBMs have completed their drives, the cavern head house shaft will hopefully be completed, which should mean that the tunnellers from Euston Tunnel can move onto the approach tunnels. I didn't mention this in the previous video when explaining that the new station will be constructed in a box, but I hope it now makes sense why the station will have to be lower than the existing station, as there wouldn't be sufficient room from the portals to the throat to achieve the desired incline and reach the level of the existing station. A positive side effect of this will be the ability to construct an above platform concourse and public space that I believe will allow Euston residents and passengers to be able to walk from east to west across the station, which will improve access across the Euston site. Hopefully I've explained the approach tunnels well enough. It was a lot to fit in a sub 10-minute video. Just before I go, I'd like to say a big thank you to the Patreon and YouTube members who support the channel. Your ongoing support is greatly appreciated, so thank you. If you'd like to add your name to the credits, then there are links in the description. And lastly, if you found this video informative, then please don't forget to give it a like, as it helps my content to get noticed.